This remarkable story took place on Shadow Valley Defan in Virginia. The farm specializes in breeding white-tailed deer with unusual colors and patterns, such as white and spotted. The staff had witnessed the birth of many deer, but no one could have imagined what an incredible birth was about to happen in this case. Lacey was a very special deer and was beloved on the farm. The fact that she even survived was not a given, as she had a moving story behind her. 2 weeks after Lacey's birth, her mother unexpectedly passed away, leaving the poor animal alone. She was visibly affected by this and had difficulty eating. The staff were unsure if she would be able to survive on her own, and some of them even began to give up on her. However, a particular employee named Backer never gave up hope and took care of the baby every day. She was almost like a surrogate mother to her. Thanks to her help, the little animal overcame the loss of her mother and grew into an impressive female. But her moving story was not the only reason why she was so popular. A disease called albinism caused Lacey's unique white fur. This is a genetic condition where an animal completely lacks melanin, which means it has no pigmentation or color in its body. This makes them appear white and pink. The latter is due to the fact that the blood vessels are visible through the skin. Albino animals are a very rare sight, and many people came to the farm to marvel at this extraordinary animal. At that time, Lacey was the only albino deer on the farm. The staff were very excited about her future offspring, hoping that she would produce more rare albino deer for the farm. The likelihood of an albino giving birth to another albino was higher, but still very small. However, there was a crucial problem in finding a mate for her. She refused to mate with any of the male deer on the farm. Most of the male deer were dominant and she simply did not want to approach them. However, when the staff introduced a male of lower rank, Lacey took the initiative and approached the stag herself. We were so happy that she was finally ready to be with a male, and we couldn't wait for her to become pregnant, said Backer. The staff began to keep an eye on her and document the event, and be near in case she needed help during birth. It is often difficult to tell if a deer is pregnant, but of course, the farm staff had experience with many talks and knew what to look for. When Backer noticed that Lacey began grooming herself frequently, she suspected that the animal was pregnant. They waited a few more weeks, then noticed a large bulge in Lacey's underbelly. Backer was right, the farm's favorite animal was pregnant. The people were excited and couldn't wait for the birth. Unfortunately, this joy did not last long as she lost the pregnancy in the second trimester. We were so happy that she was finally pregnant, and it was really devastating when she lost the pregnancy. We were so sad for her, but we believed that she would make it, said Backer. 6 months after losing her pregnancy, Lacey became pregnant again. And it was this special pregnancy that got millions of people talking. The length of a deer's pregnancy depends on the specific species, but most deer are pregnant for between 180 and 200 days. At this time, Backer began to watch pregnant Lacey, but she did not make it too obvious to avoid scaring the animal. Backer noticed that Lacey often stayed in the meadow, as if she was already looking for the perfect place for the birth. About 2 weeks later, Lacey became restless and showed physical signs that the time was approaching, which meant she was having contractions. Lacey went into the meadow, and Backer followed closely behind, determined to capture the birth of the fawn. Backer set up her camera, trying not to take her eyes off the deer. And then it happened. Lassie gave birth to her first baby, a beautiful little fawn that looked very similar to Bambi. The tiny deer had a normal brown coat, even though Baker had hoped for an albino deer. Baker was very happy nonetheless. But then something happened that some people would call a miracle. It seemed that the doe was giving birth to another baby. Most first-time mothers usually give birth to only one fawn, so in Lassie's case, it was almost a miracle. While she was preparing for the birth of her second fawn, the happy mother still tended to her first baby. She lay down quietly next to him on the ground and licked his fur with her tongue, as any good mother would do. The fawn snuggled up to his mother and even began to search for a source of milk. However, since Lassie was still lying on the ground, the fawn couldn't nurse yet. After a few minutes of cuddling with the firstborn fawn, Lassie showed signs of giving birth to her second baby. She stopped licking the first fawn, and at that moment, Baker moved closer with his camera. Within seconds, 2 tiny hooves appeared. Just before the second fawn was fully born, its sibling came over to inspect it and even began to lick its twin brother. While Baker was expecting another brown fawn, something completely unexpected happened. Lassie recoiled in shock when the second fawn appeared. Just like its mother, it was completely white. This may be difficult to discern at first glance because, in the first moments of its life, a fawn is still covered with a yellowish afterbirth. But as Lassie tended to her second baby between the two important moments, his snow-white coat became fully visible. The staff couldn't believe it and were overjoyed. If you enjoyed this story, then give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Stay tuned for more amazing stories.